Today we're talking to Jeremiah Peschka. Jeremiah, how you doing?
Doing great, David. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now you're a DBA/developer, is that right? How do you describe yourself?
I just actually typically describe myself as a database developer.
Okay. Meaning that you write the code that goes along with the database.
Right. I write the code. I do a lot of the early performance tuning, and I kind of go from there and work with the developers to make sure that they're getting the data they need as fast as they can.
Okay. That's a big problem with databases. Whenever I have an application and it's slow, the first place I look is the database because they're easy to blame.
It's very easy to blame because it's kind of like a black box, and there are a lot of places inside that black box where a lot of things can get slow.
Absolutely, that tends to be a bottleneck. Just somewhere, either retrieving the data from disk or getting it across the wire, somewhere in there tends to be a place where there's a lot of bottlenecks.
Yeah, that's very true.
But it is a black box. So I call the database developer a DBA, and I ask him for help. And tell me about the process you go when you get that call.
Well, the process I go through is a lot of times I'll find out what they're doing and exactly which parameters they're using, to call a stored procedure or the query they're running, and then I'll fire up the SQL Server profiler and also Perfmon and set up some counters and some different things I want to watch.
Let's talk about those tools individually, all right?
Sure.
The profiler does what?
The profiler actually shows you what is currently running in SQL Server while you're running the profiler.
Okay.
And then Perfmon takes a look at specific counters such as like percentage of memory in use or disk activity, CPU utilization, deadlocks, locks, blocking inside SQL Server.
Okay.
Pretty much any kind of Windows service has counters that you can track, and then you can basically merge those two sets of data together from Profiler and Perfmon and see exactly what was going on when you have high CPU or high disk usage.
All right. What are you looking for when you look at these tools?
Basically, I'm looking for anything that would indicate that there is a problem with the query itself, like CPU is spiking, or I have a lot of waits to read from disk, which would mean that basically there are a lot of operations waiting to read. So there might be a problem with my disk subsystem. Maybe there's a bad drive in the SAN, and the SAN is trying to compensate.
Okay. So now this is always a mystery to me, is how do you know what an acceptable wait time is? How do you know what acceptable CPU usage is? Is this just a feel that you have because you've been doing this so long, or is there some guidelines you can give people that are doing this?
Actually, Microsoft published some guidelines out on both in TechNet and MSDN, where they pretty much go through a lot of these counters you can use for SQL Server, and they show you, say your page life expectancy should probably be over 300 seconds. So any given page in RAM should be alive for more than 300 seconds.
Oh, okay. On TechNet they have this?
That's on TechNet, yes.
Okay. All right, so you've got this data, you've determined a general area where it is, it's disk access,
you kind of narrow it down, and a lot of
step?
The next step then would be to actually look at the specific, if it is something that I can fix in the database itself, I'll look at the specific query, and I'll run the set of queries that are causing problems, and I'll take a look at their execution plan, which shows me exactly what's going on in SQL Server and how it compiles that query and builds it, what kind of joins it's using, the type of operation it's doing, whether it's scanning an entire 10 billion row table.
Right.
If it's doing that, then I know, okay, there's some really bad indexes on here, and there's a really cheap, easy fix I can get. And I'll do that and go back to the developers and be like, hey, I just changed some indexing. Let's see if you can run this again. Let's see what it does from the application. After I run it locally, of course, and make sure I get it fast. And we'll kind of go through a lot of iterations like that.
Okay.
Where we'll see okay, we can improve this and improve this and improve it until we get to a point where either it's we know it's as fast as we can get it, or it's fast enough for the application, and then we kind of move on to the next problems that we're seeing.
That's interesting. So I, as a developer, I remember when I first started doing this, I would start with that step, with looking at the stored procedure, looking at the queries that I'm passing in, and I would assume that those could be optimized more.
Sure.
Is that a good place to start?
I tend to start at the base level and work my way down towards something.
What's the base level?
Like basically looking at the entire machine, kind of holistically looking at the machine as a whole, and it can be something like you have a bad NIC, or you have a bad drive. One of the drives in your RAID has gone out. I kind of go down from there. I actually ran into a situation recently where we were experiencing some slowdowns, not because of any bad stored procedures, but because we had so many inserts going into a single table that it was causing
some locking.
Some locking and blocking, and just the database was moving. So we turned down our logging, and sure enough, everything's sped up.
Interesting. Okay. And that actually, in retrospect, as a little more experience has taught me, don't start with optimizing every query, because
Right.
then you're wasting time.
Yeah,
if that's in fact is not the bottleneck.
right. You're kind of optimizing the auto loop, so to speak.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was always one bottleneck, right?
Right.
And if you're not working on that bottleneck, you're not improving the performance at all.
Correct.
So even if your query is lightning fast, it takes nanoseconds.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if the disk access is slow.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if the CPU is overburdened.
Yep. Exactly.
So this is a matter of gathering evidence using the tools. Any other tools you use?
Those are the big tools I use, really. It's just what comes built in with SQL Server and with Windows, and Management Studio has a lot of features in it, like the execution plans. And one of the nice things in SQL Server 2008, when you view the execution plan, it will even show you if it thinks there's a missing index. It will show you what the index is.
It'll recommend a new index for you.
It'll recommend a new index.
Nice.
Actually, there's one other tool I use. Jason Straight has a little add-in you can put in to SQL Server and a query for it as well. And what that does is it shows you kind of missing indexes, and it gives you suggestions on what to do with your current index as well, any that you might want to create. So,
Jason, where do I find that?
you go to straightsql.org, STRATESQL. I think it's .org or .com. I forget which.
Yeah, we'll look it up. We'll put it right here.
Excellent.
On the screen, and it'll disappear like this.
Fantastic.
Anything else?
That would be it, really.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, David. I love to use technology to help my friends do their job better.